Good morning, cuppers, roasters, colleagues, friends, farmers, wherever you are. Welcome today. It's very good to have you here. And today, my name is Sean Pius, also known as Sean the Coffee Guy. And in proud collaboration with Specialty Coffee Exchange in South Africa, I'm presenting to you something very new, something very unique. And I've entitled it and called it COVID Coffee Cupping. The reason being is it's a cupping method that I have worked on over the last couple months, actually nearly a year now, on cupping side by side with standard cupping protocol, but using this device called the Clever Dripper. The one thing that we're going through right now, we've got to take into consideration, is everybody that is coming around to your shops, that is popping around to the farm, wherever you are, we need to take their safety and their hygiene firstly into consideration. Everybody feels differently about what's going on during lockdown, but more importantly, some people don't feel as safe as others. Some people are not as concerned as others. So we've got to take and respect everybody's opinion. So the one thing I looked at, and I've been looking at for a while, is when it comes to cupping, a lot of the time we try to follow protocol, but we end up double dipping because we forget to rinse our spoon, we forget to wipe it off. And then at the end of the day, there is cross-contamination. We are putting our germs into the cup that everybody is experiencing. So what I've done over the last couple months is a lot of experimentation around utilizing the Clever Dripper as your cupping protocol method. It doesn't follow the exact Q-grader protocol as per the full protocol in terms especially for uniformity, because you are doing one Clever Dripper per coffee, but it gives you the ability to have 500 grams that it yields, for between 450 and 500 that it yields, that you are able to share out the coffee individually with people, that they may have their own cupping experience of that coffee, and it's much easier to control as well. You'll see now as I go through the demonstration, but more importantly, you're taking everybody's feelings, safety and sanitization into account. So everybody feels safe and everybody feels happy, and it heightens the experience. And there's a nice little trick after this that I'll be showing you in the next video, where we're going to take this to the next level in doing something amazing. So I hope you enjoy this. I'll take you through this step by step. What I was also saying is, in terms of uniformity for Q graders out there, remember, we cup in on different levels. Sometimes it's just within the roastery where the team are checking out the coffee. They don't always do a triangulation or 5 cups to check uniformity. They just want to see that the roast is coming out consistent from roast to roast. That's not always the case of you always have to do 3 cups or 5 cups. But what's important is that depending on how many people there are, you may have to do 3 based upon quantity. This eliminates that factor because you get quantity. So on a standard 200 ml cupping cup, majority of the roasters out there that I know use 11 or 12 grams. So I'm going to be using that same ratio. It's about 16.6 grams per normal standard cupping. So it's 1 part coffee to 16.6 grams of water with a cupping size grind. So everybody has a different ratio, but majority of the guys I'm dealing with out there, I'm selling green beans out there on a permanent basis, dealing with many roasters, and every single one of them, Sean, I use between 11 and 12 grams in my standard cupping size cup of 200 mils. And that's what we're going to go with today. 1 part to 16.6 parts. Now the beauty. The Clever Dripper takes up to approximately 500 grams of water. I've checked this consistently. I use my scale on a regular basis. If you want to utilize the scale on every brew, you can. What you need to take into consideration is the time factor between each coffee you do, because remember, you want to ensure that you end up with consistency across the brews that you do. If you're doing 1 brew at a time, it's fine, because then there's no rush. You follow standard protocol, you go through the steps, and then you do it. and you enjoy it afterwards as well, because it's nice and clean and polished because it's gone through a filter. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to take my standard 4x1 filter paper and put one in each clever dripper. Very simple. Now the beauty about the clever dripper is, as you know, for some of you that don't, it has a mechanism at the bottom that has a valve that releases the liquid to come through. If the clever dripper is standing on the counter or even standing on your scale, it won't release. But the minute you pop it on top of a vessel, it pushes up the bracket underneath and releases the volume or the liquid that is in the top. So you have the ability to do a full immersion brew with a clever dripper, or you can even use it as a standard pour-over, where you put it straight on top of your server and you do a standard pour-over like a V60 or any standard pour-over method. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-wet my filter paper. So something to take into consideration, which you normally don't have with cupping, is that you're not using filter papers. So we want to ensure that we wet the filter paper nicely, and I'll fill it up quite a bit, not because I need to, because I need to make it very hot. It's because what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it over into the server to then warm up the server. So I've got quite a bit of water here. There we go. Pop that right on there. Now, this paper is nicely wet. Pop that onto the server. Pop that onto the server. Pop that onto the server. We've got a nicely rinsed filter paper. We're also then warming up the server, and then afterwards we'll just swirl the server and pour the water out. With this as well, with the valve, just give that a little bit of a swirl. A little bit of water gets stuck around the bottom edge of the valve. Okay, now I'm going to take these off. Basically, I am ready to start my cup. So today, under normal circumstances, I try to, whenever I'm doing a cupping table, I try not to do more than 3, 4, possibly 5 coffees at a time. If you don't have experienced people that are doing a cupping with you, and you now have to explain to them to break the crust and clear the crust, it can get very confusing. You lose track of time, and then you end up with possibly the coffee on the end of the table or the coffee to the center of the table where it gets over extracted and whatever. Always ensure that you have a timer available all the time. So what I do is I like to, obviously I've got the Acacia scale, I'll put it on the timer, and what I do whenever I do a cupping is I try have a break in between each of the sets that I do. In this case today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 1 minute in between. Standard cupping protocol is you're soaking the coffee for 4 minutes, breaking the crust, everybody gets to smell, you then clear the crust, and then everybody gets to experience. With the research I've been doing over the last year, that experience in terms of if you have multiple people that have, when you've broken the crust and are smelling, before that crust is cleared, it can be anything up to a minute and a half later before the crust is cleared. I've done an experiment a few times with a group of approximately 4 to 5 people, and it takes about a minute for those 5 people to experience the aroma of that coffee. So what I will do at 4 minutes is I'll break my crust, let everybody smell, and at 5 minutes I'll pick up the clever dripper and put it onto the server and allow it to filter down naturally until I get a nice flat bed. Just towards the end I give it a swirl, and then make sure I don't leave it for too long. So my extraction period of it running through must be no longer than 2 minutes. Every test that I've done, it's been, if the cupping size is right, it's normally about 1.5 minutes. It's all the way through, beautiful flat bed. I'm able to take it off, move it out the way, and you'll see now as I've done this. Okay, so my water, I'm setting at 92, I just keep topping up. I've got a few bits of water, and I'm going to start with coffee A. So I'm not telling you today what I'm using. I've just got beautiful fresh coffees. I like to cup generally anything between 24 to 48 hours, but I also like to cup again at 72 hours and then 4 days, just to see how the coffee develops, especially with the degassing process. I've pre-weighed out my grammage on each cup. I've pre-wet my vessel. I'll pop that in. Pop that in. And I'll pop that in. Okay. So bear in mind, the timing is vitally important here. Move these out the way. Just give it, make sure you've leveled it off nicely. So I'm using 30 grams and I am filling the clever dripper basically right to the top. It's possibly 2 to 3 mils before the top of the paper or before the edge of the clever dripper, and I've checked it every single time. You can check it in between for everyone. Pop it on, zero it, fill it, move it back. We try not to, as per standard protocol, move cupping cups. So if you're going to do it and you are doing 3, rather have 3 scales. If you're doing 1, do 1 at a time if you want to weigh it perfectly every single time. So let's start with coffee A. My water is 92 degrees and I'm going to start my timer. In the first 30 seconds, I try to pour all the water, and just ensure that you wet all the coffee thoroughly. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm 25 seconds, 26 seconds. There we go. Just there. Okay, so as I was saying, at a minute, I will start pouring the next one. Okay. That's going to jump back up. I do thankfully have water that has already been preheated slightly. That's going to now go for 4 minutes. Okay, that looks great. There we go. So we're on 1 minute. Perfect. Just on 92 degrees, and I'm going with my second one. Coffee B. This is smelling absolutely beautiful. I can't tell you, these combinations of aromas here are making me want to dig the spoon in quicker than I should. All right, and there we go. 30 seconds, happy with that. Last but not least, my third brew. Now, timing with this is vitally important. If you find a minute can be very, very tight, and you might find that you don't fit it in within a minute, I always say, don't rush it. If you find that you're running over, like I've now filled up water, I'm on my 2 minutes already, I haven't started this, I would rather then delay it to 3 minutes. Then I know this is a minute later and this will be 2 minutes later. In some cases, if you're doing multiple coffees, spread it out 2 minutes, every 2 minutes. So then you're breaking crust at 4, you're breaking crust at 6 minutes, you're breaking crust at 8 minutes. It just makes your life a lot easier. I could do it now 2.5 minutes. The problem is it's just going to throw me out. I'm going to lose concentration, especially when there's lots of people standing around, they're smelling the aromas of the coffee. So bear in mind, I'm on 2 minute 42. I need to break crust here at 4 minutes. Then at 5 minutes, I'm going to pour it over to the server. I want to now at 3 minutes do this one. That is looking absolutely fantastic. I'm just on perfect. Okay, and there, 3 minutes on the dot. So all I've done is I've just delayed this third one by 1 more minute. Just gives me a little bit of time then to focus and concentrate on the first 2 coffees. These are looking absolutely beautiful. Lovely. Okay, 30 seconds. I'll pop that over there. switch my perfectly fine. All right, so we're sitting on 3:39. Now, standard cupping protocol, you've got different containers to dip in. Give everybody their own rinsing container, everybody their own cloth, so that they just feel safe. Okay, so I'm sitting now, there we go, exactly 4 minutes. So I can break the crust, I can move on. Next person can come along, keep an eye on the time. So bear in mind, I've got my own container, I can have my own cloth that I can wipe my spoon, I can put to one side. I like to normally just pop it in over here and I can just wipe it as I want to. The 4 or 5 people within the first 45 seconds will be able to finish smelling the aroma of the coffee and making some notes. Okay, so I'm getting to 4 minutes 44, 4 minutes 45, and what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to clear out the server. Okay, bear in mind at 5 minutes, you are now going to break crust because we're 4 minutes over here. But before I do that, I will take this, it's 5 minutes, and I will pop that on. Now we're going to break crust in the second coffee. Beautiful, absolutely smashing. That one is just as good. A little bit darker than the first one. I can rinse that off. Okay, I'm sitting on 5:23. So bear in mind, I'm 1 minute extra on this coffee. So I won't be breaking at 6 here, I'll be breaking at 7. But I need to pour this over at 6 because that's a minute later. So it'll be 5:30. So try and get your timing correct, so that there's no confusion. If you decide to do 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes across them, rather do that. If you want to do 3 minutes, if you want to just do 2 at a time, it's sometimes a lot easier. Bear in mind, the last thing you want to do is break protocol. There's confusion and everybody doesn't know what's going on. So now, there we go, 1 minute. Down the line, I've rinsed that out and I'll pop this over. Okay, so we're exactly a minute that I've done this over, and I'm already done here. Beautiful flatbed. Let's give it a little swirl. Like I said, the coffee gets stuck on the sides. And pop that down. Coffee number 1. Beautifully polished, filtered, ready to go there. I can leave it just to air a little bit. Then remember over here, I'm going to be pouring this over at 7 minutes. I want to obviously break crust first and then push it over. Okay. I'll pour that out so long. Okay, we're coming up here. 4, 3, 2, 1, and break crust. Beautiful. Okay. Own container. Now you can let everybody carry on. They can break the crust there. Okay, so we are just 1 minute 17, 18, 19. There we go. Beautiful flatbed. Okay, so we've got extraction through here in just over a minute. This one just on about 1 minute 20. Light roast, light to medium roast, darker roast. Interesting how the extractions are slightly different. Grind size is the same, but obviously consistency of the way it's brewed through, very, very different. Okay, got a bit of swirl, pop that down. Second coffee, lovely. Let that air a little bit. Now that I've done that one, I want to pour that over, and there we go. My minute is up after breaking crust, and I start my third one. Now the beauty is all the hard work is done. You as the cupper, the roaster, if you're doing this presentation, this can be quite stressful if you don't get the timing right. Trust me, I've done it a few times, and a minute is not easy, especially when you are juggling water. and you want the quality of your water to be good, and you don't have a lot of kettles. So that can be a problem. What I also like to do is I want the 3 coffees, I want to taste them at the same time. When I've popped the third one on, after a little bit I give this a swirl and I'll put the lid of the server on. I also now just don't want to lose too much temperature. Okay. And then what I'll do is while we're prepping and getting ready with our cups, let this one finish. Okay, so we're just over a minute. Beautiful, just about coming to an end. So the slightly darker roasts, I find the extraction is normally a little bit longer. It comes up maybe a minute and a half, sometimes even a minute 45, but you don't want to go beyond 2. The beauty is if you're sitting at 2 minutes after you've put this on, all you need to do with the clever drip is lift it, the valve will obviously close, and then you have the ability just to shake it off and put it over there. In this case, it's finished. Remember, I want to give it a shake. Any coffee that gets stuck around the valve. So we were about 1 minute 25 there. Perfect. And coffee number 3. Now remember, always give the coffee a good swirl. Make sure that all the coffees mix nicely together. It has filtered through, and like you're cupping out of a cup, you've broken the crust, you're moving it, you're dipping in, you're slurping. Just give all 3 a nice swirl. Now, for about a minute while we're prepping, what I do is I then will hand out the cups. So everybody will get their own individual cup. So if I'm cupping with 4 people, including myself, I'll get my cups ready. I'll leave this for about an extra minute. And then obviously pop that on, and then we're going to start with cup 1. Now what I love about this is everybody's got their own cup. If you want to preheat the cups, you can. Normally I try not to, depending on if it's ceramic or glass, because you don't want anybody to burn their lip, but at the same time we follow strict cupping protocol. So beautiful coffee. You're getting about 450 grams in total. So depending on how much you want to taste and what you want to do with it afterwards. In between, I always put the lid on. So now you're able to, on the other side of the table, which is relatively neat, spread it out, and each person can basically evaluate their own cup of coffee. If you want to do all 3, you can have extra cups, you can put them side by side, you can evaluate the coffee side by side. But the beauty as well is there's no cross-contamination. So my cup, I'm able to evaluate on aroma, and the beauty is, normally in between, you would be rinsing, tapping, cleaning your cloth. You've got your own cup, you've got your own spoon, everything is safe. We're not letting anybody taste everything. Across these should be identical in flavor and taste because we've mixed it properly. So it's very important you just follow the protocol. We've stuck to the standard Q grader or Q cupping protocol, where we have allowed it to steep for a certain period of time. We've poured it over. The difference is we're just ending up with a cup that's a little bit cleaner, a little bit crisper, and because it's being filtered, you don't have the grit in the cup. So when you get into the bottom of the cup, normally you get quite a bit of grit, and you end up sometimes with a bit of over extraction, especially when it comes to slightly older coffees that we cup, because the grinds sink to the bottom, they don't float on the top. So this gives you very good consistency, especially when you end up cupping a coffee, because you know what happens. Your roaster roasts you a beautiful coffee. He sends it in the courier. He sends it on day 1. The courier doesn't take 3 days to get it to you. It takes 6 days because there was a delay. Now your cupping experience is completely different when you do it. With this will give you better consistency. Yes, the age of the coffee will impact the cupping experience in terms of flavor, but in terms of consistency, especially when you come to cupping protocol and the coffee sinks to the bottom because of the age, you're going to end up with over extraction in that cupping experience. This eliminates that factor every single time. So you end up with amazing continuity, amazing consistency, and you have the ability to cup on a regular basis. And all you need is a beautiful clever dripper, a simple server, doesn't need to be fantastic, a nice set of cups, your cupping spoons, your cloths, your rinsing jugs, and let's not forget good quality water, very, very important. And don't forget great coffee and good grind size. So I want to thank you. Like I said, coming up next is something very, very different when it comes to this experience. I'm going to take you through a COVID coffee cupping blending experience where you utilize the setup to create beautiful blends with different coffees that you are brewing. And I'm very excited to be trying that with you very soon. Keep a lookout for that video. It will follow shortly. And on that note, I want to say thank you very much. I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope you have a great cup of coffee. Cheers, take care, and all the best with your cupping experience. Thank you.